Marcus Chen limped through the sprawling junkyard, his mechanical leg clicking softly against the metal debris scattered across the ground. The morning sun cast long shadows between towering piles of discarded starship parts, broken rovers, and twisted alien technology that nobody could identify anymore. At 73, Marcus had seen enough wars to fill several lifetimes, but these daily walks through the yard kept his mind sharp and his body moving. The junkyard stretched for miles in every direction, a graveyard of dreams and failed expeditions. Earth's rapid expansion into space had created mountains of waste, and this particular yard specialized in alien salvage. Most of it was worthless scrap, but occasionally Marcus found something interesting enough to sell to the research stations orbiting Mars. Today felt different, though. A metallic glint caught his eye from beneath a collapsed atmospheric processor. Marcus pushed aside chunks of twisted metal, his augmented arm servos whining under the strain. What he found made him step back in surprise. It was clearly alien in origin, but unlike anything in the databases. The creature was roughly panther-sized, covered in what appeared to be organic metal plating that shifted between deep purple and silver depending on the angle. Battle scars crisscrossed its form, telling stories of conflicts Marcus could only imagine. But what struck him most were its eyes, still faintly glowing with an inner light that suggested it might not be as dead as it appeared. Marcus had learned long ago to trust his instincts. During the Centauri campaign, those instincts had kept his unit alive when everything went wrong. Now they were telling him this wasn't just another piece of scrap metal. He activated his scanner, running it over the creature's form. The readings were chaotic, showing energy signatures that shouldn't exist in dead technology. The metal plating along its flank had been torn away, revealing complex circuitry underneath that pulsed weakly with bioluminescent patterns. This wasn't just a machine or just an animal. It was something that blurred the line between both. Marcus had heard rumors of such beings during his military service, whispered stories from deep space reconnaissance teams about creatures that were part biological, part technological, and entirely dangerous. But this one looked broken, abandoned, forgotten. Someone had dumped it here expecting it to rust away with the rest of the unwanted debris. The thought made Marcus angry in a way he hadn't felt in years. He'd seen too many good soldiers left behind, too many lives treated as disposable. Whatever this creature was, it deserved better than slowly corroding in a junkyard. Marcus activated his comm unit and called his old friend Rodriguez, who ran a small research facility on the outskirts of the city. After explaining what he'd found, Rodriguez agreed to help transport the creature, though his voice carried clear skepticism about the whole enterprise. 2 hours later, a hover truck arrived with Rodriguez and his small team. They stood around the creature in amazement, scanning it with equipment far more sophisticated than Marcus's basic scanner. The readings confirmed what Marcus suspected. Whatever this being was, it wasn't entirely dead. Loading it onto the truck required careful maneuvering. The creature weighed more than its size suggested, and its metal plating was sharp enough to cut through standard loading equipment. Marcus insisted on riding in the back with it during transport, something about its stillness reminding him of wounded soldiers he'd carried off battlefields decades ago. During the ride to Rodriguez's facility, Marcus noticed something that made his breath catch. The creature's breathing was barely perceptible, but it was there. Whatever this being was, it was alive, just barely hanging on to existence. The realization filled him with a determination he hadn't felt since his military days. Rodriguez's facility was a converted warehouse filled with salvaged alien technology in various states of repair. They set up the creature in a clean room normally used for delicate electronics work. As they transferred it from the truck, Marcus thought he saw one of its eyes flicker, responding to the change in lighting. The preliminary scans revealed a biology unlike anything in Earth's databases. The creature's organs were a hybrid of organic tissue and nanotechnology, with its nervous system integrated into quantum processing nodes scattered throughout its body. Its metal plating wasn't armor, but rather a symbiotic skin that could apparently shift density and conductivity based on need. Most remarkably, the scans detected what appeared to be a sophisticated AI matrix embedded in its brain tissue. This wasn't just an alien animal. It was a sentient being with technology integrated at the cellular level. The implications were staggering, and Marcus realized he'd stumbled onto something that could change humanity's understanding of the galaxy. As night fell, Marcus sat beside the creature in the facility's main lab. Rodriguez and his team had gone home, leaving detailed instructions for monitoring its condition. The old veteran had volunteered to stay, claiming he wanted to make sure their equipment didn't malfunction. In truth, he couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was aware of its surroundings and shouldn't be left alone. Around midnight, Marcus was proven right. The creature's eyes opened fully for the first time, revealing irises that swirled with patterns of light that seemed almost hypnotic. It tried to move, managing only to lift its head slightly, before the effort proved too much. But those eyes, fixed on Marcus with an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. Marcus leaned forward slowly, keeping his movements calm and deliberate. He'd had enough experience with traumatized soldiers to recognize the signs. This being was afraid, confused, and probably in considerable pain. Whatever had happened to it before ending up in that junkyard had been traumatic enough to leave lasting damage. The creature's mouth opened slightly, and a sound emerged that was part electronic static, part organic growl. Marcus realized it was trying to communicate, though its systems were clearly damaged. He reached out carefully, stopping just short of touching its metal plating. Something extraordinary happened then. The creature's plating began to shift color, cycling through patterns that seemed almost like a visual language. Marcus felt a tingling sensation in his augmented arm, as if the creature's technology was somehow interfacing with his own cybernetic components. In that moment of connection, he sensed something that would haunt him for days to come. This being had been searching for something, traveling vast distances before whatever catastrophe had nearly destroyed it. 3 days passed before the creature attempted to stand. Marcus had barely left its side, sleeping in a chair beside the medical table where it lay. Rodriguez had tried to convince him to go home, but the old veteran was stubborn. Something about the alien's condition reminded him too much of his early days in field hospitals, watching over wounded comrades who might not make it through the night. The creature's recovery was unlike anything medical science had documented. Its wounds began healing at a visible rate, with new metal plating growing to replace damaged sections. The process fascinated Rodriguez's team, who took detailed scans every few hours. The healing wasn't just biological. The technological components were regenerating as well, suggesting a level of integration between organic and artificial systems that Earth scientists could barely comprehend. Marcus noticed the creature watching him during these examinations, its luminescent eyes tracking his movements with growing recognition. When the medical team became too aggressive with their poking and prodding, the creature would calm down only when Marcus spoke to it in low, steady tones. It was clearly forming some kind of bond with the human who had found it. On the morning of the 4th day, the creature finally managed to lift itself onto its haunches. The movement was shaky at first, its limbs trembling with the effort, but within minutes it was sitting upright with a grace that spoke of natural agility. Marcus approached slowly, offering his hand palm up as he might to a nervous animal. The creature studied his hand for a long moment before extending one of its own appendages. The contact sent a shock through both of them, not painful but startling in its intensity. Marcus felt a flood of images and emotions that weren't his own. Vast star fields, burning ships, the desperate flight from something terrible pursuing through space. The creature jerked back, its plating flashing warning colors that cast dancing shadows across the lab walls. Rodriguez, who had been monitoring from across the room, rushed over with scanner readings that defied explanation. The brief contact had created an energy spike that registered on instruments throughout the facility. Whatever had just happened between Marcus and the creature had involved a direct neural link, something that should have been impossible without specialized interface equipment. The creature seemed as surprised by the connection as Marcus was. It tilted its head, studying the old veteran with what could only be described as curiosity. Then deliberately it reached out again. This time Marcus was ready for the sensation, and instead of random images he felt something that resembled attempted communication. The exchange was frustrating for both of them. The creature was clearly trying to convey something important, but the language barrier was more than just words. Their entire thought processes were fundamentally different. Marcus caught glimpses of concepts that his human mind couldn't quite grasp, while the creature seemed equally baffled by human linear thinking. Rodriguez suggested they try a different approach. His facility had experimental translation protocols designed for first contact scenarios, though they'd never been tested on anything like this. The creature allowed them to attach non-invasive sensors to its head, though it kept its glowing eyes fixed on Marcus throughout the procedure. The first breakthrough came when Marcus mentioned his military service. The creature's plating suddenly shifted to display what looked like star charts, with certain systems highlighted in pulsing red. Rodriguez's computer began analyzing the patterns, cross-referencing them with known galactic navigation databases. What they found sent chills through everyone present. The highlighted systems were all locations of major human military installations, including several classified deep space outposts that shouldn't have appeared on any alien star charts. The creature knew things about human space operations that even Marcus, with his high security clearance, wasn't privy to. But the creature wasn't showing them these locations as targets. Its emotional emanations suggested warning, urgency, even fear. Whatever had damaged it so badly was connected to these human installations, and it was trying to warn them about something approaching. The translation protocols finally began producing coherent fragments late that evening. The creature's name was something that translated roughly as Stalker of Distant Stars, though Marcus quickly shortened it to Star. More importantly, Star belonged to a species called the Voidwalkers, beings who served as scouts and messengers for a vast galactic community that humans had never encountered. Star had been sent to observe human expansion into space, part of a standard evaluation process the galactic community used when new species achieved interstellar travel. Most evaluations were routine. The new species would either prove worthy of contact or be quietly discouraged from expanding further. But something had gone catastrophically wrong with humanity's evaluation. The fragments of communication became clearer as Star's systems continued healing. Marcus learned that there were other species in the galaxy, ancient civilizations that had existed for millions of years. These elder races maintained a careful balance, preventing younger species from disrupting galactic stability while allowing them room to grow and develop. Humanity, however, had triggered something that Star called the response. Through the broken translation, Marcus gathered that human military expansion had crossed some invisible line, activating automated defense systems left behind by a species so old that even the current galactic community barely remembered them. These defenses had already begun targeting human outposts, and Star had been caught in one of the attacks while trying to gather intelligence about human intentions. The revelation that humanity was essentially at war with something beyond their comprehension filled Marcus with a familiar dread. He'd seen what happened when human forces encountered superior technology during the corporate wars of his youth. The outcomes were rarely good for anyone involved, but Star's next communication offered a glimmer of hope. The Voidwalker had originally been part of a diplomatic mission, sent to establish contact with humanity and potentially offer membership in the galactic community. If they could somehow complete that mission, if humanity could prove they weren't the aggressive expansionists their actions suggested, the response might be called off. Marcus realized that everything now depended on getting Star healthy enough to complete its mission. The creature's advanced healing was already restoring its communication abilities, but its ship and equipment were likely still scattered across that junkyard. Without those tools, Star couldn't contact its people or provide the testimony that might save human space operations from total destruction. Rodriguez's team immediately began planning salvage operations, but Marcus knew it wouldn't be that simple. The creature's technology was beyond human understanding, and they'd need Star conscious and cooperative to identify the important pieces. More worrying was the possibility that other factions within the human government might not want peaceful contact with aliens, especially if it meant limiting human expansion. As if sensing his thoughts, Star communicated one final fragment before exhaustion overtook it. Somewhere in human space, there were already those who knew about the galactic community and had been actively working to prevent contact. They had been the ones to attack Star's ship and leave the Voidwalker for dead, hoping to trigger the response and use the resulting chaos for their own purposes. Marcus stared at the sleeping alien, pieces of a vast conspiracy forming in his mind. His rescue of a single wounded creature had inadvertently placed him at the center of a conflict that could determine humanity's future among the stars. The old soldier in him recognized the signs. They were running out of time, and the enemy was already moving against them. Marcus woke to the sound of Star moving restlessly across the lab. The creature's plating rippled with agitated patterns of red and orange, colors that the translation system had identified as indicating extreme urgency. When Marcus approached, Star immediately established the neural link they'd been developing, flooding his mind with images of approaching danger. Through the connection, Marcus saw military vehicles surrounding Rodriguez's facility. The soldiers wore the black uniforms of internal security, a branch of government that officially didn't exist. They moved with the precision of special forces, taking positions around every possible exit. Star's enhanced senses had detected them long before human security systems would have noticed anything unusual. Rodriguez burst into the lab moments later, his face pale with worry. His security monitors had finally picked up the approaching force, but it was already too late to evacuate. Marcus realized with growing dread that someone with high-level clearance had been monitoring their activities and decided that Star posed too great a threat to be allowed to live. Star communicated rapidly, its thoughts flowing into Marcus's mind with increasing clarity. The creature's ship components scattered throughout the junkyard contained not just communication equipment, but defensive systems that could level the playing field against human military forces. However, retrieving those components would require getting past the soldiers now surrounding the building. Marcus made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Despite his age and disabilities, the old veteran began suiting up in combat gear that Rodriguez kept for facility security. Star's plating shifted to mirror the metallic gray of Marcus's equipment, and through their link, Marcus felt the creature's determination to stand with him. The first assault came at dawn. Internal security forces breached the facility from 3 directions simultaneously, using weapons designed to disable rather than kill. They wanted Star alive for study, which gave Marcus and Rodriguez's team a crucial advantage. The attackers had to be careful with their firepower, while the defenders had no such restrictions. Star proved to be far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The creature moved through the facility's corridors like liquid shadow, its metal plating shifting to provide camouflage that made it nearly invisible. When cornered, it could generate electromagnetic pulses that disabled electronic equipment and sent soldiers stumbling blindly through darkened hallways. Marcus found himself fighting alongside an alien with capabilities. That seemed almost magical. Star could phase through solid matter for brief moments, pass through walls, and interface directly with the facility's systems to turn its defenses against the attackers. The creature's healing abilities meant that injuries that would disable a human were merely inconveniences that slowed it down, but the real revelation came when Star began displaying knowledge of human military tactics that no alien should possess. The creature anticipated the attacker's movements with uncanny accuracy, setting traps and ambushes that suggested deep familiarity with human warfare. Marcus realized that the Voidwalkers had been observing humanity for much longer than Star had initially indicated. During a brief lull in the fighting, Star communicated a shocking truth. The Voidwalkers had been present during many of humanity's major conflicts, observing human military capabilities and trying to understand what made the species so uniquely aggressive. What they discovered was both promising and terrifying. Humans, Star explained, were one of the few species in galactic history to develop advanced warfare while maintaining strong bonds of loyalty and sacrifice. Most aggressive species became entirely self-serving, but humans retained the ability to fight selflessly for abstract ideals and for each other. This combination made them potentially valuable allies but also extremely dangerous enemies. The observation mission that had brought Star to Earth was supposed to be the final evaluation before formal contact. But someone within the human government had discovered the Voidwalkers' presence and had been systematically hunting them down. The goal was to prevent peaceful contact and instead force humanity into a war footing that would justify massive military expansion. Marcus felt pieces of the conspiracy falling into place as they fought. their way toward the facility's vehicle bay. The attackers weren't just trying to capture Star, they were eliminating witnesses to the creature's existence. Rodriguez and his team were in as much danger as the alien they'd been studying. Star's ship components weren't just scattered randomly through the junkyard, Marcus learned. They'd been deliberately separated and hidden by surviving Voidwalkers who had managed to escape previous attacks. Star needed to reach specific locations to trigger automatic retrieval, protocols that would call the hidden components together. The escape from Rodriguez's facility required everything Marcus had learned. During his military career, Star's abilities gave them advantages no human force could match, but their enemies had superior numbers and equipment designed specifically for hunting alien technology. The running battle through the city's industrial district lasted for hours, with both sides trying to avoid civilian casualties. Marcus began to understand why the Galactic community viewed humanity with such concern. The soldiers pursuing them demonstrated tactical flexibility and ruthless efficiency that would have impressed military commanders from any species. But they also showed the human capacity for sacrifice when several squad members deliberately exposed themselves to hostile fire to protect civilian areas. Star seemed fascinated by these displays of human complexity, its thoughts flowing to Marcus with something resembling approval. Through their link, Marcus sensed that the creature was constantly reevaluating its assessment of humanity based on what it observed during their escape. The first cache of ship components was hidden beneath an abandoned subway station in the oldest part of the city. Star's technology had been cunningly disguised as discarded industrial equipment, invisible to casual inspection, but responding to the creature's specific biometric signatures. As the components began assembling themselves into recognizable devices, Marcus got his first real look at Voidwalker technology. The reassembled equipment defied human understanding of physics. Weapons that seemed to fire compressed space-time, communication devices that operated on principles Marcus couldn't begin to grasp, and defensive systems that bent light and energy around them like water flowing around a stone. With these tools, Star transformed from a wounded refugee into something approaching a force of nature. But their pursuers had advantages too. Internal security forces had been preparing for this possibility for years, developing countermeasures based on captured Voidwalker technology. The battle for control of the subway station became a deadly game of innovation and adaptation, with both sides learning from each other's tactics in real time. Marcus found himself at the center of a conflict that was reshaping his understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. As he fought alongside Star through the underground tunnels, he realized that this wasn't just about saving one alien creature or preventing a war. The outcome of their struggle would determine whether humanity joined the galactic community as equals or remained isolated as a threat to be contained. The chase ended at the junkyard where everything had begun. Star's remaining ship components were scattered throughout the massive salvage operation, hidden among thousands of tons of discarded technology. But their enemies had anticipated this destination and were already moving to seal off the area. Standing at the edge of the junkyard where he'd found Star just days earlier, Marcus prepared for what he suspected would be the final battle. The wounded alien at his side had become something more than an ally. Through their neural link, they'd developed a partnership that transcended species boundaries. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The junkyard had been transformed into a battlefield. Internal security forces had erected energy barriers around the perimeter, creating a containment zone designed to prevent any escape. Overhead, military drones circled like mechanical vultures, their sensors sweeping the maze of salvaged technology for any sign of Star and Marcus. From their hiding position beneath a collapsed freighter hull, Marcus watched the systematic search pattern the soldiers were using. They moved with the confidence of people who believed they had won, methodically clearing sections of the yard while specialized teams used alien detection equipment to scan for Voidwalker technology. Star's communication had become more sophisticated as more of its ship components came online. The creature could now project words directly into Marcus's mind in clear, unaccented English, though the thought still carried emotional undertones that revealed its alien nature. What it told him about the conspiracy they faced was more disturbing than Marcus had imagined. The shadow organization hunting Voidwalkers wasn't just a rogue government agency. Star explained that they were part of a movement that had existed since humanity's first steps into space, dedicated to ensuring that contact with alien civilizations would happen only on human terms. They called themselves the Terran Primacy, and they had been systematically sabotaging every attempt at peaceful first contact for decades. The Primacy had infiltrated government organizations, military commands, and research institutions across human space. Their ultimate goal was to position humanity as the dominant force in their region of the galaxy, using superior military tactics and technology stolen from captured aliens to conquer rather than cooperate with other species. Star's mission had been compromised from the beginning. The Voidwalkers sent to evaluate humanity had walked into a carefully prepared trap, with only a few managing to escape the initial attacks. Those survivors had hidden their ship components throughout human space, hoping that eventually someone would piece together the truth and help them complete their diplomatic mission. Marcus felt sick as he realized the implications. Humanity's aggressive expansion hadn't been driven by natural exploration instincts. It had been artificially encouraged by people who wanted to provoke a galactic response. The automated defenses now targeting human installations weren't responding to actual threats, but to deliberate provocations designed to create the war the Primacy wanted. Through the Junkyard's scattered debris, Marcus could see search teams getting closer to Star's remaining ship components. The alien's technology was calling to its scattered pieces, but the assembly process was slow and vulnerable to interruption. They needed time and space to complete the reconstruction, neither of which seemed available. Star had been monitoring human communication frequencies since its recovery, and what it had learned painted a terrifying picture of the immediate future. The Primacy wasn't just hunting down individual Voidwalkers. They were preparing to launch a preemptive strike against galactic community forces, using human military assets and stolen alien technology to devastating effect. The plan was elegant in its brutality. By attacking galactic community outposts while making it appear that humanity was acting in self-defense, the Primacy would trigger massive retaliation that would justify their total war strategy. Human forces would be forced to fight for survival, never knowing that the conflict had been engineered by their own leaders. Marcus realized that stopping the conspiracy would require more than just helping Star complete its mission. They needed to expose the Primacy's infiltration of human institutions and provide proof that humanity's apparent aggression was artificially manufactured. Without that evidence, even successful diplomatic contact might not be enough to prevent the approaching war. Star's ship components had been designed with such scenarios in mind. As more pieces came online, the creature gained access to detailed recordings of Primacy operations, including communications intercepts and video evidence of attacks on Voidwalker scouts. The alien technology had been passively collecting intelligence about its attackers, building a comprehensive picture of the conspiracy. But accessing that evidence required completing the ship's reconstruction, which meant fighting their way through the forces surrounding them. Marcus studied the tactical situation with decades of military experience, looking for weaknesses in the containment perimeter. The Primacy forces were well-equipped and professionally trained, but they were also overconfident and following predictable patterns. Star contributed its own analysis, its alien perspective revealing tactical opportunities that Marcus might have missed. The creature understood human military doctrine from years of observation, but it also brought Voidwalker combat techniques that could exploit weaknesses in human defensive strategies. Their attack began at the Junkyard's main entrance, where the heaviest concentration of enemy forces was stationed. Star used its phasing abilities to penetrate the energy barriers, while Marcus provided covering fire from positions that should have been impossible to reach. The combination of human tactical knowledge and alien capabilities created chaos among the defenders. The battle revealed new aspects of Star's healing technology. Injuries that would have been fatal to a human merely caused temporary disruptions in the creature's functioning. It could lose entire limbs and regrow them within minutes, adapt its metal plating to resist different types of weapons, and even survive direct hits from energy weapons that vaporized solid matter. But the most shocking revelation came when Marcus was wounded by shrapnel from an exploding drone. Star immediately moved to help him, its metal plating flowing like liquid to cover Marcus's injuries. The alien technology bonded with his cybernetic implants, not just healing his wounds but enhancing his existing augmentations with capabilities he hadn't imagined possible. Through their neural link, Marcus felt Star's technology integrating with his own systems. His mechanical leg gained new servos that tripled its strength. His augmented arm developed precision controls that made him far more accurate with weapons, and his optical implants gained sensors that could detect energy, signatures invisible to normal human vision. The enhancement process was more than just technological. It was creating a genuine symbiosis between human and alien systems. Marcus found his thoughts processing tactical information with inhuman speed, while Star gained access to human intuition and creative problem-solving that its logical mind couldn't replicate. Fighting side by side through the junkyard, they became something greater than either could have achieved alone. Marcus provided the unpredictable creativity that kept their enemies off balance, while Star contributed precision and capabilities that made their attacks devastatingly effective. As they reached the central area where Star's main ship components lay hidden, the true scale of Voidwalker technology became apparent. The scattered pieces were reassembling themselves into a vessel that was part spacecraft, part living organism, and part quantum computer. Its hull flowed like liquid metal, adapting its configuration for optimal performance as each new component integrated with the whole. But their enemies had prepared for this moment. The primacy forces revealed weapons that Marcus had never seen before, devices that fired streams of disrupted spacetime, gravity manipulators that could crush targets regardless of armor, and energy fields that could temporarily erase matter from existence. They had clearly been studying captured alien technology for much longer than anyone suspected. The final battle for control of Star's ship would determine more than just their immediate survival. With the vessel's communication systems, they could contact the galactic community and provide evidence of the primacy conspiracy. Without it, humanity would stumble blindly into a war that would likely destroy both human civilization and the delicate balance the galactic community had maintained for millions of years. Standing beside his alien partner, as enemy forces closed in from all directions, Marcus prepared for what he knew would be the most important fight of his life. The partnership forged between a wounded veteran and a stranded alien scout had become humanity's last hope for avoiding a catastrophic war, and everything now depended on their ability to survive the next few hours. The battle for Star's ship reached its climax as the vessel's final components locked into place. The completed craft defied every human understanding of engineering. Its hull seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, while its internal systems operated on principles that made quantum physics look simple, but more importantly, it was now capable of sending a message that could reach the galactic community within hours. Marcus and Star fought desperately to protect the ship as primacy forces launched their final assault. The enemy had deployed weapons that could temporarily freeze time in localized areas, create gravity wells that crushed everything within them, and fire projectiles that existed in quantum superposition until they struck their targets. These were technologies that humanity wouldn't develop for centuries, stolen from alien visitors and reverse-engineered by the conspiracy. Through their enhanced neural link, Marcus and Star coordinated their defense with inhuman precision. Marcus's human intuition guided their tactical decisions, while Star's alien capabilities provided the means to execute strategies that should have been impossible. They moved through the battlefield like a single organism with two bodies, each anticipating the other's actions with perfect timing. The ship's communication array came online just as primacy reinforcements arrived. Heavy assault mechs dropped from low orbit, their armor incorporating alien defensive technologies that made them nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. But Star's ship responded to the threat by reconfiguring its hull into weapon systems that fired streams of crystallized spacetime, turning the attackers' exotic armor against them. As the immediate threat was neutralized, Star began transmitting to the galactic community. The message contained not just proof of the primacy conspiracy, but detailed recordings of human behavior that painted a complex picture of the species. The Galactic Council would see both humanity's capacity for deception and violence and their equal capacity for loyalty, sacrifice, and cooperation. The response came faster than either Marcus or Star had expected. Space around Earth suddenly filled with ships that made human technology look primitive. Voidwalker vessels phased into reality like ghosts becoming solid, while other alien craft that defied description took positions throughout the solar system. The galactic community had arrived in force, ready to either welcome humanity or contain the threat they represented. But instead of the hostile fleet that the primacy had been preparing to fight, the aliens came with representatives who wanted to understand what had happened. Star's testimony, combined with the evidence gathered by other surviving Voidwalkers, had convinced the Galactic Council that humanity might not be the aggressive species their actions had suggested. The first face-to-face meeting between human and galactic community representatives took place in the Junkyard where everything had begun. Marcus found himself serving as humanity's unofficial ambassador, his neural link with Star making him the only human who could effectively communicate with the diverse array of alien delegates. The galactic representatives were as varied as the stars themselves. Some were energy beings that existed as patterns of living light. Others were collective consciousnesses that spoke with thousands of voices simultaneously, and still others resembled nothing in human experience. But they all shared a common concern about what humanity's future would mean for galactic stability. Star served as both translator and advocate, its unique relationship with Marcus providing proof that humans could form genuine partnerships with alien species. The creature's testimony carried weight, because Voidwalkers were known throughout the galaxy for their objectivity and analytical precision. If Star believed humans were worth saving, the Council would listen. Marcus found himself describing humanity's complex nature to beings who had observed the galaxy for millions of years. He spoke of human wars and human compassion, of the drive to explore and the willingness to sacrifice for others. Most importantly, he explained how the primacy conspiracy had deliberately amplified humanity's worst tendencies, while suppressing opportunities for peaceful development. The evidence Star's ship had gathered was overwhelming. Recordings showed primacy operatives attacking alien scouts, deliberately provoking the automated defense systems, and planning preemptive strikes against galactic community outposts. The conspiracy had been preparing for total war while convincing regular, human forces that they were fighting for survival. But the galactic representatives weren't just concerned about the primacy, they were evaluating humanity as a whole. The Council had seen other species destroy themselves through internal conflicts, and they needed to know whether humans could overcome their aggressive tendencies and join the larger galactic community. Marcus realized that this was humanity's final examination, and the stakes couldn't be higher. If they failed to prove their worth, the galactic community would implement containment protocols that would effectively end human space exploration forever. Earth would become an isolated world, cut off from the galaxy by barriers that human technology couldn't cross. The turning point came when Star demonstrated the symbiotic enhancement technology that had evolved from their partnership. The alien showed how human creativity and alien precision could combine to create something greater than either could achieve alone. The enhancement wasn't just technological. It represented a new form of cooperation that could benefit both species. Several galactic representatives expressed interest in the human capacity for adaptive creativity. Most alien species developed along predictable paths, their technologies and societies following patterns that had been repeated countless times throughout galactic history. But humans seemed capable of genuine innovation, finding solutions that no other species had considered. Star explained that this was why the Voidwalkers had originally recommended humanity for early contact, despite their apparent aggressiveness. The same traits that made humans dangerous also made them potentially valuable: their willingness to take risks, their ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances, and their tendency to form strong bonds across species lines. The Council's decision process was unlike anything in human experience. The various delegates shared thoughts and memories directly, creating a collective understanding that transcended individual perspectives. Marcus could sense the debate through his link with Star, feeling the weight of galactic history bearing down on humanity's future. Some delegates argued for immediate integration, believing that humanity's unique capabilities could strengthen the galactic community. Others favored gradual contact over several generations, allowing human society to develop more slowly toward galactic norms. A few still believed that containment was the safest option, given humanity's demonstrated capacity for violence. The debate continued for hours, with Marcus and Star providing additional testimony as needed. The old veteran found himself describing battles he'd fought decades earlier, explaining how human military ethics had evolved over time and why he believed his species could learn to channel their aggressive instincts constructively. Starr supported his arguments with analysis of human behavior, patterns gathered during years of observation. The creature had documented not just human conflicts, but also examples of cooperation, sacrifice, and moral growth that demonstrated the species' potential for positive development. As the council moved toward a decision, Marcus felt the weight of representing his entire species. Everything he said would influence whether humanity joined the galactic community as equals or remained forever isolated on their single world. The partnership between a wounded veteran and a stranded alien scout had become the foundation upon which humanity's galactic future would be built. The final test came when the council asked Marcus to demonstrate human decision-making under pressure. They presented him with a scenario where he could save Earth, but only by sacrificing Starr's life, or save Starr but risk leaving humanity vulnerable to primacy retaliation. It was exactly the kind of impossible choice that had defined his military career. Marcus's response surprised even Starr. Instead of choosing between the options presented, he proposed a third alternative that would protect both humanity and his alien partner. His solution required trusting the galactic community to honor agreements they had never made with humans, while simultaneously gambling that human forces could adapt quickly enough to help contain the primacy threat. The council recognized in Marcus's answer the same creative problem-solving that had originally interested them in humanity. Rather than accepting the limitations of the scenario, he had found a way to transcend them through cooperation and mutual trust. It was exactly the kind of thinking that the galactic community needed to face challenges they hadn't encountered before. Starr's advocacy proved decisive. The creature testified that humanity's capacity for growth and adaptation made them valuable allies despite their current limitations. The Voidwalker's analysis suggested that humans could learn to channel their aggressive instincts into protective rather than predatory behaviors, making them ideal guardians for younger species just beginning their journey to the stars. As the council reached its decision, Marcus felt the future of The Galactic Council's decision came as a cascade of harmonized thoughts that Starr translated for Marcus. Humanity would be granted provisional membership in the galactic community, but with conditions that would test their commitment to peaceful development. The trial period would last 50 Earth years, during which human expansion would be monitored and guided by Voidwalker observers. Marcus felt relief wash over him, but Starr's emotional emanations carried warnings about the challenges ahead. Provisional membership was better than isolation, but it came with responsibilities that would fundamentally change human society. The most immediate challenge would be dealing with the primacy forces that were even now preparing for a war that would never come. The galactic community moved swiftly to contain the conspiracy that had nearly triggered a devastating conflict. Alien technology disabled primacy weapon systems across human space, while special operations teams worked with loyal human forces to arrest the conspirators. The evidence Starr had gathered made prosecution straightforward, though the scope of the infiltration shocked even experienced investigators. Marcus found himself appointed as the first human liaison to the galactic community, his partnership with Starr making him uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between species. The role came with enhanced neural implants that allowed him to communicate directly with multiple alien species, though the process of receiving the upgrades was more intense than anything he'd experienced during his military augmentation procedures. The technology that merged human and alien systems went far beyond simple communication enhancement. Marcus's consciousness was expanded to perceive reality from multiple perspectives simultaneously, allowing him to understand concepts that human language couldn't express. The experience was overwhelming at first, like suddenly being able to see colors that had never existed before. Starr remained as his primary partner and advisor, their original symbiosis evolving into something that served as a model for future human-alien cooperation. Other humans began training with Voidwalker partners, learning to merge human intuition with alien precision in ways that benefited both species. The revelation of alien contact sent shockwaves through human society. Religious groups struggled to incorporate the existence of other intelligent species into their worldviews, while scientists raced to understand technologies that operated on principles they'd never imagined. The social upheaval was enormous, but it was managed through careful coordination. Between human governments and galactic community advisors, Marcus spent his days mediating between human and alien perspectives that often seemed completely incompatible. Simple concepts like individual identity meant different things to species that existed as collective consciousnesses, while the human notion of personal privacy baffled aliens who shared thoughts as naturally as breathing. The most difficult challenge was helping humanity understand their new limitations. Human expansion into space would continue, but it would be guided by principles that prevented the kind of aggressive colonization that had triggered the current crisis. Some human factions resented these restrictions, viewing them as alien control over human destiny. Starr's analysis of human psychology proved invaluable in addressing these concerns. The creature understood that humans needed challenges and goals to maintain psychological health, so it worked with galactic community planners to design expansion programs that satisfied human ambitions while respecting galactic protocols. The solution involved humanity taking on the role of galactic peacekeepers, using their military capabilities to protect younger species from the kinds of threats that automated defense systems couldn't handle. Human forces would become the galactic community's rapid response teams, dealing with situations that required adaptability and creative problem-solving. Marcus helped train the first generation of human galactic peacekeepers, teaching them to work alongside alien partners in situations that previous military doctrine had never considered. The training was intense, combining traditional military skills with alien technologies and diplomatic protocols that could prevent conflicts before they began. The partnership between humans and voidwalkers became the template for other cooperative programs. Human creativity complemented alien analytical capabilities, while alien technology enhanced human intuition and emotional intelligence. The combinations produced solutions to galactic problems that neither species could have developed alone. But not all humans accepted the new reality. Remnants of the primacy conspiracy continued to operate in secret, working to undermine human-alien cooperation and restore what they saw as human independence. Their efforts were largely futile against galactic community surveillance, but they represented a persistent threat to humanity's provisional status. Marcus's enhanced senses allowed him to detect primacy infiltration attempts that normal human security might have missed. The conspirators' hatred of alien influence made them predictable, but their willingness to sacrifice human lives for their ideology made them dangerous. Several terrorist attacks targeted human-alien cooperation facilities, requiring constant vigilance from peacekeeping forces. The most significant test of humanity's commitment came when a previously unknown alien species began attacking galactic community outposts in a distant sector. The aliens used tactics similar to those that had made humans so concerning to the Galactic Council, suggesting they might be another species struggling with the transition from aggressive expansion to cooperative development. Human peacekeeping forces were deployed to contain the threat, but Marcus and Starr were sent as diplomatic envoys to attempt first contact. The mission would test whether humans could apply the lessons they'd learned to help another species avoid the mistakes they'd nearly made themselves. The journey to the conflict zone took them through regions of space that no human had ever seen. Starr's ship had been enhanced with galactic community technology, giving it capabilities that made faster-than-light travel feel like a casual stroll. Marcus marveled at the vast network of civilizations they passed, each contributing something unique to the galactic community. As they approached the unknown species territory, Starr detected energy signatures that triggered memories of the automated defense systems that had nearly destroyed human expansion. The attacking aliens weren't just aggressive. They were being manipulated by the same ancient technologies that had responded to human expansion, suggesting that someone or something was deliberately triggering conflicts throughout the galaxy. Marcus realized that their mission had expanded beyond simple first contact. They were investigating a conspiracy that made the primacy's operations look insignificant by comparison. Someone with access to ancient galactic defense systems was using them to create wars between younger species, but their ultimate goals remained unclear. The partnership that had begun with Marcus rescuing a wounded alien from a junkyard had evolved into humanity's entry point to galactic civilization. Now it would be tested against a threat that could destabilize the entire galactic community. Standing on the bridge of Star's impossible ship as they prepared to make contact with hostile aliens, Marcus felt the weight of two species' futures resting on their ability to find peace in the darkness between the stars. The hostile alien species called themselves the Kethvar, and their first meeting with Marcus and Star nearly ended in disaster. The insectoid beings attacked immediately upon detecting their ship, using weapons that created tears in space-time itself. Only Star's advanced defensive systems and Marcus's tactical experience allowed them to survive the initial assault long enough to establish communication through painstaking negotiation that lasted for days. Marcus and Star learned that the Kethvar had been driven to aggression by the same automated defense systems that had threatened humanity. But unlike humans, the Kethvar had no conspiracy directing their expansion. They were simply reacting to perceived threats that the ancient systems had artificially created. The revelation that the defense systems could be manipulated remotely shocked even the galactic community's most experienced investigators. Someone had gained access to technologies left behind by the galaxy's original inhabitants, using them to trigger conflicts that would weaken younger species and prevent them from reaching galactic community standards. Marcus's enhanced neural implants allowed him to interface directly with the Kethvar's communication networks, a process that would have been impossible without his symbiotic connection to Star. Through this link, he discovered that similar manipulations had occurred throughout the galaxy for thousands of years, always targeting species at the critical transition point between aggressive expansion and cooperative development. The mastermind behind the manipulations was revealed to be a collective intelligence that had once been part of the galactic community itself. Millions of years ago, this entity had disagreed with the community's policy of nurturing younger species, believing instead that only the strongest should be allowed to survive and evolve. When their views were rejected, they had gone into hiding, spending eons learning to subvert the very systems designed to protect galactic peace. Star's analysis revealed the scope of the threat. The rogue collective had been systematically weakening the galactic community by preventing promising species from joining, using ancient defense systems to trigger destructive wars that exhausted both the potential members and the community's resources. Their ultimate goal was to collapse galactic civilization and rebuild it, according to their own vision of natural selection. The battle against the collective required cooperation between humans, Voidwalkers, Kethvar, and dozens of other species that had nearly been destroyed by the ancient manipulations. Marcus found himself coordinating military operations that spanned multiple star systems, his human intuition and alien enhancements allowing him to predict the collective's strategies in ways that pure logic could not match. The final confrontation took place in the galactic core, where the collective had hidden itself within the gravity wells of massive black holes. Human peacekeeping forces provided the adaptability needed to navigate the chaotic environment, while alien technologies offered the power necessary to challenge beings that had existed since the galaxy's youth. Marcus and Star led the assault on the collective's primary stronghold, a construct that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The battle tested every enhancement their partnership had developed, requiring them to think and act in ways that transcended the limitations of both human and Voidwalker capabilities. The collective's defeat came not through superior firepower, but through the demonstration that their fundamental philosophy was wrong. The cooperation between former enemies like humans and Kethvar proved that diversity and mutual support were stronger than pure competition. Faced with evidence that contradicted millions of years of belief, the collective chose to surrender rather than destroy everything they had sought to preserve. In the aftermath of the victory, humanity's provisional membership in the galactic community was upgraded to full status. The crisis had proven that humans could indeed channel their aggressive instincts into protective behaviors, using their military capabilities to defend rather than destroy. More importantly, they had demonstrated the capacity for growth and change that the galactic community valued above all else. Marcus returned to Earth as a hero, but he found the recognition uncomfortable. He preferred to focus on the ongoing work of building relationships between humans and the dozens of species now present in human space. The old junkyard where he'd found Star had been converted into a memorial and training center, where future generations of human-alien partnerships would be forged. Star remained his constant companion and partner, their symbiosis having evolved into something that served as a living bridge between species. Together, they established the protocols that would guide human expansion for generations to come, ensuring that humanity's journey to the stars would be one of cooperation rather than conquest. The neural enhancements that Marcus had received began to spread throughout human society, though always by choice rather than mandate. Those who accepted the modifications found themselves capable of perspectives and experiences that pure humanity couldn't achieve, while those who chose to remain unenhanced were equally valued for their authentic human insights. Years passed, and Marcus aged into a role as elder statesman of human-alien relations. His partnership with Star became the stuff of legend, inspiring countless others to seek similar bonds with alien species. The old veteran who had once fought in humanity's wars now spent his time preventing conflicts that could have consumed entire star systems. The greatest legacy of their partnership wasn't the technology or the treaties, but the proof that beings from completely different evolutionary paths could not only coexist, but thrive together. The symbiosis between human creativity and alien precision had created something new in galactic history, a form of cooperation that strengthened both partners while preserving their essential natures. As Marcus entered his final years, he reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple act of compassion in a junkyard. Rescuing a wounded alien had seemed like the right thing to do at the time, but it had ultimately reshaped the destiny of two species and helped save galactic civilization itself. Star's people had a saying that translated roughly as the smallest kindness can grow to encompass the stars. Marcus had lived to see the truth of those words, watching as his decision to help a stranded creature had blossomed into a legacy that would outlive both of them. The partnership between a human veteran and a Voidwalker scout had proven that the galaxy was vast enough for all its children to find their place among the stars. In the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons or technology that had earned them a place in the galactic community. It was their capacity for compassion, demonstrated by an old soldier who couldn't walk past a wounded being without trying to help. That simple human trait, more than any other, had convinced the galaxy that humanity deserved to join the ancient community of stars. The story of Marcus and Star became the foundation myth of humanity's galactic age, told to children on 1,000 worlds as an example of how different species could find common ground. Their partnership had shown that the universe was not a place of endless conflict, but a garden where diversity could flourish when tended with wisdom and care. Standing together in the memorial garden that had once been a junkyard, Marcus and Star looked up at stars that no longer seemed distant and hostile, but welcoming and full of possibility. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humanity had finally found its place among them.